Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Pursuing Horizons podcast. Today, Rob and I are speaking with Jenna Tilbury. So, for context, Jenna was on the Flex Cortex podcast a couple times, and she actually loved it so much that she's here again. So, today we're going to be covering some myth busting of some common fitness trends or topics. We're going to give our input on it. We're going to try to be respectful, I think, if we can. But I'm excited. Thank you so much, Jenna. And Rob, as usual, I'm pleased that you're here as well. All right. So let's strike while the fire is hot. Okay. Carnivore diet. Thoughts?
Right into it. Let's go.
Let's start with I'm as a coach, and the goal is to help people become more healthy. I'm
Sure.
never going to be mad at someone for using a trend or a diet that works for them that helps them be more healthy. Let's start there. I'm never going to shame that. I'm never going to be mad about that. I'm going to be like, hey, if it works for you, it works for you. With that being said, with health and longevity being the goal, I'm not so sure that type of diet is rooted in long-term sustainability. I know it's worked for a lot of people. I know it's turned some people's health like completely around. Like, for example, I have a family friend who's like severely diabetic his entire life, did the carnivore diet, and like now all of a sudden his life's changed. But with that being said, the any diets tend to have some form of restriction. Restriction in turn generally like means you're losing some type of weight or fat loss. So it's like, was it the fat loss that changed diabetes, or was it the carnivore diet that changed diabetes? You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of like my take on it. I never think it's a good idea to like completely eliminate things from your diet. Whenever you remove anything, sorry, I meant to say your guts. your
Could be
gut
butt too.
Incredible.
your gut microbiome like loses the ability. Do you see why I said butt? Because that little word twist there.
Butt
It's
microbiome.
perfect.
Yeah, sure.
It's so and hey, man, the butt's kind of related, so we're good. This is perfect.
Your oh god.
Okay.
Anyway,
Gut microbiome.
your gut microbiome, it
Mhm.
loses the ability to break down those foods that you stop eating. Like for example, if people were like, "Oh, I'm going to stop eating gluten forever," or like for 6 months, you might actually build up an intolerance to that. Same thing with
Yeah.
carnivore diet. If you like start removing carbs of the diet, you start removing, I don't know, like you don't eat rice anymore, you don't eat bread anymore, whatever, you could eventually make your body unable to break those things down should you ever want to bring that back into your diet. So it's just something
Yeah.
to keep in mind. It's like, is this something you want to do for life? Or is it something you just want to try? What's the reason for trying it? What are the results you're looking for? That's kind of my thought process around it. Um,
Yeah.
anyway, you guys go. I want to hear what you have to say.
I do have something to say there. I think you said something really cool at the start. You did throw the word trend in there, and that's kind of very similar to my take on it as well. Now, I do have a follow-up question there. Is have you noticed that it's very quite like let I try the carnivore diet, Bryce tries the carnivore diet. I truly believe in my time in the industry that I'm going to see two different results and very not similar. And I think I can extrapolate that a little bit more onto a lot of other nutrition trends that have come through or diet trends that have come through where someone has great success in something, but it doesn't translate to that other person. And they've been told, hey, try this diet, try this diet. This is going to get the results you want. And it doesn't happen. I guess can you speak to that at all? And do you think, it is some more of a subjective kind of situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. Honestly, I think as we know, we've worked with like hundreds of different types of people. No single individual is the same as another. No, like no one is the same. Not even twins, I don't think.
Yeah,
Nobody's body is absolutely identical. So what works for one person might not work for the next 10. And I think the onus is on us as coaches and on the individual to actually take a hard look at what we're doing and actually analyzing the facts. Like, is this something that truly will work for you? If it's not, why pursue it?
it is.
So yeah, I think it also depends on that client's adherence. How carnivore are they going? I know some carnivore diets are just meat, nothing else. Some of them are like meat and some fruit. And then so I think it just depends. It depends on the individual. If we like want to go a layer deeper, genetics, people from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
I know this is like another fact. Don't fact check me on this, but I'm speaking on it
That's the
loosely.
best.
I'm speaking on this loosely, but
Yeah.
I
Wait,
know
wait, for
there's
context, when you say don't fact check you, do you want me to fact check you?
well, you could if you wanted to. I just remember I was talking with one of my old bosses way back. He was a big keto guy, and I kind of like rolled my eyes at it, but it really really worked for him. And he did a lot of research on it cuz he's like I don't want to do this if it's not doesn't work. And so he actually did a lot of research. I know we're kind of like drawing away, but I'll circle back to carnivore and
No,
why
you're
it's
good.
important. I
We'll
know
reel it
for
back.
his yeah, for his keto diet, um there are certain populations and demographics in the world. I can't remember where in the world. It predominantly, I believe it was like African populations, is they actually don't digest carbs well. There's like
Mm.
3% or something like that in the of like of a certain population in the world who actually don't digest carbs well. Their body doesn't have the genetic makeup to break down and utilize that type of fuel efficiently.
Mhm.
So with that being said, I don't know if there's any research like that on carnivore diet. There could be. So potentially there's a genetic predisposition for people on the carnivore diet who will have it work really well for them and some who might not. But again, I don't know the data on that. I'm just saying there is data on the
Yeah.
carb side of things. So I'm curious if there could be. So long-winded answer to Rob's question. I think depends on the individual. Depends on adherence, depends on their genetic makeup potentially and how their body responds to food. So yeah, it's a bit kind of a toss up. It's like try it if you want, but if it doesn't work, I don't think you should try to force something that's not working for you.
Yeah. Just to add a little bit on there, and this can kind of set us up throughout the rest of everything we go over today, is just because it worked for someone, it's not a guarantee it's going to work for you. And I think there's another side of it too, which is the belief. Do you truly believe this is going to work for you? Because that's the biggest thing I've seen too. Is if someone trains with me, and years ago, and it was like, oh, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. You said over and over again, like whether your beliefs on like negativity or not, like I just see that is the exact result you're going to get. So to anyone listening too, like if you're hearing these, and I have no problem calling it a trend. We've seen these things circle back, come and go. They get refined, they change, and they come back under a different name all the time. And I don't think they're bad or good. It's how much information do you have about yourself? How much individual information do you have on a gene level, like on cellular level, of is this for you? And I think that's an important thing to kind of keep in mind through everything that we're going to talk about today. To anyone listening, is you're different. You said it perfectly. Like even, and again, this is a fact, but don't fact check me, which is my new favorite quote. Even twins, which I'm going to look into this right after. Even twins, it's different, right?
Yeah.
So it's do the due diligence that you need to understand who you are, what you're made of, and what's going to work for you. And if it, yeah, exactly like you said, if it's not working, don't force it.
Yeah. I only have one thing to add, then we'll move on. And I think within any of this stuff, like there's always nuance. And that's one thing we'll probably see a common trend in the theme and for today's podcast is like there's nuance for everything. So just consider that with anything that we discuss. But for carnivore, like the only thing too that I would say is like I love what Jenna mentioned about that anybody wanting to get into the gym and focus on their health, I think that's amazing. And if they are leaning towards carnivore, I'm not going to discredit that or tell them that they shouldn't try it. But do it safely, do it smart, like get blood work done, maybe even talk to somebody about it too. Just make sure you're at a good place too. But again, like, are you losing weight because of carnivore, or are you losing weight because you're just like eating better, you're going to the gym, you're managing stress better too? Like, there's a lot to kind of consider within it too. And again, would I rather somebody be doing carnivore over just eating McDonald's every day? Probably. So, I mean, there's always going to be worse ends to it too. Just consider the nuance, and sometimes you don't have to like teeter to the extreme end of the scale. Just know that sometimes the middle is a good place to be. And like even Rob and I talked about that in like I think a podcast ago or something too. The middle ground is going to be generally the good place to always land. That way you're not on like the hyper extremes on either end of things.
Mhm.
All right. Next question. This one I can't speak to, but I think one of us can. Client asked me thoughts on smoking weed before you work out.
I have never smoked weed in my entire life. In 26 years of life, I've never smoked it. So I honestly can't speak to this at all. So
Yeah,
one of you go for it.
So
I got
I think
this.
to kind of add context to this first. So I think to kind of add some context to this first, just for discussing points. maybe talking about how it would impact performance, maybe talk about recovery, and even just like the mental component of it. If you could speak to that, Rob.
Sure. So it sounds like I might be the only THC CBD user in here. And let me preface this with my I am what you call what the kids call California sober, where I only partake in a little bit of, and then that's almost out of my life too. But I am a bit of an advocate, obviously in moderation. Now, when I first started, the big thing for me that I saw was I was, a good half of my fitness career, I was over consuming alcohol. I have no problem admitting that. Anyone who knows me knows that that's I champion, sobriety and recovery and all those things. But the big thing I saw with when I started to introduce cannabis into my life, and especially in a workout setting, first of all, I'm not driving to the gym. I'm not going to smoke and then go train a client and then leave. Because there's people that do that and excel on that. I'm not here to judge that at all. I That just doesn't work for me and it doesn't fit my brand. But what I did notice is we have seen studies that it lowers cortisol. Now, we seem to be a very stressed population. We have mental health things on the rise, we have anxieties. And if we look at it simply in the sense of a pre workout, I first of all don't recommend having marijuana and pre-workout. That is the recipe for the biggest anxiety attack and existential breakdown of your life. Yeah, your body's gonna be fighting. Are we up? Are we down? Are we up? Are we down? But what I did see was a level of focus. And let's say I was going in and I was focusing on it was going to be just a strictly posterior chain kind of day. With the way my brain was working back then, I was very scattered thoughts. I found that whether it was a CBD or THC in it, I could really isolate a thought and I would spend 30 to 45 minutes more in the gym. Whether that's good or bad in the sense of overtraining, I'm not sure at that point. But the pro side of it for me was it really calmed me down and I focused. After that, on the other side of the workout, there is something to be said about, and again, I can only speak to what it did for me with a lower cortisol post gym. I found that I was more prone to want to do more recovery based things, which as I've aged here, and again, I'm going to be 40 soon, which is a wild thing to say. Recovery seems to be the biggest, most important thing to me in where my fitness journey has taken me now. And when it comes to this, however you decide to consume it, those are the two big things for me is improve focus in the gym, not improve, but just a different kind of focus for where my brain was at that time. Post gym, I kind of was able to sit down and find new recovery ways, or, if I was going to get in a hot tub or take a cold shower, one of those kind of things, those all seem to be easier to me from that place in my life. Now, I really can't tell you right now it's good or it's bad because I've seen this be a good thing for people. I've seen be a bad thing for people. I've seen it do the exact opposite, total anxious freak out in there. So like everything, you need to know yourself. It's not going to be like, oh, I've never tried this before. It's leg day. Let's give it, the first smoke because everybody else in the gym is going to know you're high too. And it can go good. I have friends that swear by it, that absolutely swear by it. And I know there's a lot of big influencers out there that swear by it too. I would feel inclined to lean more into the CBD aspect, the CBN, and on the recovery side of things, especially on the recovery side. As getting towards middle age here, it's not something I do anymore. If someone comes to me with an experience and already a disposition to it, I would say, hey, if you can do it a safe way and you're not intoxicated driving, obviously, yeah, try it out. Home gym, try it out. Learn as much as you can about yourself and then apply it from there. But it's always moderation, including moderation, always.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know about the it lowering cortisol. That's interesting.
Oh, huge. Yeah, that's the biggest. Well, and that being said, my partner cannot partake in it because her cortisol it'll lower it, but it's going to manifest itself in a much more anxious kind of output, I guess. But before it was legalized up here, it was definitely being used as pain killing remedy that was more natural and stress levels being down. So again, I'm going to bring out the quote of the day, which is, "Here's a fact, but don't fact check me on it." I believe the studies are showing us that, like, yes, 100%, this is a cortisol lowering thing. And I know from my perspective of it, I've been in situations where I always think the body will give you everything that you need to be, it'll always find that homeostasis, and it's always going to give you everything that you require um, to be the best you can be, obviously, which sounds so generic. But that being said, it takes a lot of experience to learn these things. And sometimes the situation we're in can be just overwhelming. And not in a way, it's escapism, sure. But bringing that cortisol down, and if that, to me, in my personal opinion, is a natural source as opposed to taking an Ativan, I'm going the natural source every time.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a good talking point too. It's like if you had to choose if someone's going to take like prescription painkillers or if they're able to use cannabis and it provides them with some relief too. I do think if we're trying to pick one of the two options, it's better to probably go the route where they are
Yeah,
utilizing cannabis, right? Versus like a
yeah.
painkiller where they're probably getting like hooked on it and they're stuck on some sort of painkiller too.
And we are so new. This is the last thing I want to add on this. We're so new in the legalization and the everywhere I go, it seems what used to be almost like the casual drinker is now the casual vapor or smoker. And as I watch, like the generation coming after me do the same things that we did, I think we don't have enough what's the word I'm looking for, enough time of the legalization where all the studies aren't, like fringe studies are going underground to really see what the lasting effects of this have been.
Okay.
So we are in kind of that discovery mode of it right now. But if it's something you're thinking about in the most safe way, I is the person to say safe way, that's all I can say, like learn about what you can handle, what you cannot, and give it a try. If you have a great experience with it, awesome. If not, don't worry about I can't sit here and tell you it's great or it's bad. It's been good for people, it's been bad for people, but I do love the recovery aspect of it.
Cool. Cool. Yeah, no, I think it's good to talk about it too, just because it is something that's very common. And even obviously my client is an example of it too, but I know of other people that have utilized it. But for myself, I know it makes me super anxious. So I
Mhm.
know for myself personally, like just trying to do that before I need to go into a setting or environment where I need to focus. I know for me, it'd be a little bit counterintuitive.
Exactly,
But
man.
for
Yeah.
some people, if it can provide them with being a little bit more mentally focused and ready, then I do think it can be helpful. But again, that's kind of where the nuance lies. Is like, okay, well, is it going to be helpful for you specifically, or are you going to like have a manic episode and then just freak out?
And if we really compare it to and both are so I've seen both happen and I've felt both happen too. And like, is this any different or worse than, railing a line of pre-workout with like 600 milligrams of caffeine just because it says assault fuel power on the bottle, Like, let's see what that pre-workout was really doing to us all along.
Oh man. Okay, we'll forward it along to the next question. So next one is thoughts on planning your workout routine around your cycles/hormones. And oddly enough, I actually just had this conversation recently, so it'll be good to talk about it some more. But yeah, let's get into it. What are some thoughts behind it?
Yeah, so I'll speak on the female perspective because I am one and I know what it feels like to have your
I think
every
that
day is different.
I think that
So,
qualifies you.
um, I work with women, so this is a topic that actually comes up frequently. And again, like we've been saying the entire time, every single person is different. No one woman's hormone and like menstrual cycle is the same. But number one is you need to understand your baseline like week to week. So there's 4 phases in the menstrual cycle, or sorry, there's like 4 weeks in the menstrual cycle, and like each week or each 2 weeks brings something a little bit different for women. Some women are like totally symptomless. They're like totally baseline all the time. Don't know what that's like. I am not like that. There is like normally I'll have like one really good week, two kind of mid weeks, and one shit week. And that is like constant rotation. If I'm feeling like off, I know it. In terms of planning your workout routine around your cycle and hormones, again, we've kind of been talking about trends and fads lately. Based on research, this topic is a bit of a trend right now. So I'm going to talk about the physical aspect and then the psychological aspect. So based on data right now, physically, you're actually okay. Nothing's changing. Your ability to do hard work is not being impacted by your changes in hormones. Like your body's ability to train hard and build muscle, nothing at like a cellular level is actually changing. Everything's totally fine. But for women, and you guys can probably imagine, like, imagine you're sick one day. You have a headache, maybe you have a stuffy
It'd be
nose, maybe
all,
you got a sore
yeah.
throat. Like, when you don't feel well, do you want to go hit a fucking bench PR? No, you don't. You're like, I'm gonna stay at home today, or I'm gonna go do a recovery day, or I'm gonna sit in the sauna. So for
I'm gonna
women,
binge Lord of the Rings today. Well, that's just me, I
literally,
guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
almost a Harry Potter marathon.
Yeah, whatever.
So for women, it's more the psychological and emotional impact. Then it's like it's like a trickle down effect into like you feeling the desire and motivation to be more physically active or to push harder. For example, like every woman has different symptoms. Like say on your cycle you have lots of cramps, maybe you have a really heavy period. Those don't feel nice. Like that's not a nice feeling to be experiencing that for a 24 to 48 8 hour period. And if I have peak week that week in my lifts, like if I'm supposed to have a PR week that week, like my lifts are going to be shit because I don't psychologically feel great. Physically, I actually probably am fine and can push, but do I actually want to? Like, do I emotionally feel in the moment, feel like I want to be there, feel alive, feel good, and want to go hit some big lifts? Probably not. So for women, I think again, it depends on you and your body. You need to actually track your cycle. You need to know what your day 1 to day 7 looks like, what your day 7 to 14 looks like, 14 to 28 or 35, however long your cycle is. You need to know how you're feeling week to week. And if you don't, because if you don't know that, then being like, oh, I'm gonna plan this around when I menstruate, it's like you're kind of just going in blind. Like you need to know when your low weeks are and when your high weeks are, and then you can kind of strategize. Like, okay, on my low weeks, maybe I'll structure it so I have a deload that week. So like volumes dropping, intensities dropping. I'm like, it's more of like a recovery period because you know psychologically you're not gonna be feeling great. Um, and then during your like weeks where you feel really great, that can be like a peak week, or that can be the week where you start a new training phase because you feel alive and awake and ready to go, and you're not in pain and you're not uncomfortable and you're not fucking bleeding. So from the female perspective, data says nothing actually really changes from a physical level, but it's more like the emotional and psychological impacts of like you're kind of feeling unwell. And so then when you're feeling unwell, do you want to push hard in the gym? Probably not.
Yep. That ties into the belief that Rob mentioned earlier in this pod too, where like if you don't feel well, do you believe that you could likely do it? And I think also within that too, it's like for the mental component of it, like cortisol could drive up. So if we're like in a place where we're even mentally we're not ready, we're creating this stress in our mind, and then we're all of a sudden we're like, okay, well now we don't feel good, so we're not going to go into it worrying that the lift's going to be kind of shitty. So I think
Yeah.
it just with that in mind too, it makes sense to try to structure or plan your program around when you actually have your cycle and stuff, right? But I think also too, like be willing to also like just share that too with like your coach. I think that's an
Yeah.
important talking point here too, is like as a female, like I know it can kind of be a bit of a taboo topic, and a bit of like an awkward talking point, but I think it's important information to relay, because I even know like Rob has female clients, I have female clients too, like for us to have that inside perspective of like, hey, this is like that week for me. We can like, if we know that, we can modify things and adjust things accordingly too, and like likely even prioritize recovery more, right? Maybe you're doing some more myofascial stuff, maybe you're doing some more breath work, maybe you're doing some more other stuff too, maybe you're tackling some more lifestyle things, right? It's good for us to just know, so that way we're not like left in the dark, and then we try to push you, and then you're like, oh, it's actually that week for me, and then you're like, oh, okay, I did not
Yeah.
know that.
I think for coaches listening too, like especially male ones, that it doesn't need to be awkward. It's about building that a space. And I know with like majority of my clients are female, or until this year, which is very strange. But before that, they were, and I definitely focused on creating a safe communication space where we could get into these topics if that was there. At the end of the day, it's my client's choice if they choose to talk to me about it. But what I could do on my end was provide as much safety and understanding to know that these topics can be brought up with me, because the more information we get about you individually, the better this is going to work for you.
Mhm.
100%.
I
Yeah.
know. I'm just gonna add another point to that too, is because I'm here for the girlies and I love the
Yeah.
girlies. Um, Women are not that any of you have said this, but just for the women that are listening, we're not glass. Like we don't need to be treated like we are glass, that we're like breakable. And it's like, because I'm on my period, it doesn't mean it's like, oh, you poor little thing. Well,
Yeah.
like, for some women, I know it's like a really uncomfortable, horrible experience. But for a lot of us as well, it's another day, and it sucks that we got to go through the day like that. But as well, knowing myself, I'm not going to lose 2 weeks of intense training that will like detriment my athletic performance and like success because of a natural thing that happens to me every single month that I don't have any control over. So that's another thing too, is like, be super super clear on your goals. Is like, how important is your training to your whatever your goal is. If it's more like health, longevity, feeling good, and the gym is a supplement to those feelings, that's amazing. If you're chasing some type of performance goal or aesthetic goal, sometimes we don't have the luxury to take that week off or take those 2 weeks off because our body or psychologically we're not feeling great. And so I know me, like, my training is really important to me. I'm pushing hard when I can, as often as I can. So for me, as a woman that has a regular cycle, and my menstrual cycle is pretty horrible, I can't lie. Like, the first couple days of menstruation doesn't feel great. But for me, it's more of like, I kind of got to just grit my teeth and get through it today, because I don't have the luxury of taking the day off, because I need to train today to push myself for the goals that I'm pursuing. So that's also the flip side of it, is know yourself, be super clear on what your goals are. And like you guys said, have those open conversations with your coaches so you can structure your weekly, monthly, yearly training plan to best fit your lifestyle and what happens for you.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a great way to put it too. And like, again, it's just such a taboo conversation. I feel like a lot of men get awkward about it, but it's like, if you have female clients,
You
you
gotta
have
speak
to
Yeah.
about it.
you have to
Yeah.
be okay having those conversations, right?
And
Yeah.
it doesn't, and let's use this as a platform to be like, this doesn't need to be awkward, and it's something it should be not taboo. Completely up to them, 100%. But as men, we can do better in that area for sure.
I know my coach and I just talked about this. My coach is a man, and we were having a meeting in person. He kind of like side-eyed me, and he was like, "So, when's your period?"
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like,
So
why are you being so weird? And he's like, because I'm training for a half marathon right now. So he's like, I want to maximize your training and also not blow you up. So we're doing an experiment right now, and we're kind of structuring my deloads around the periods in the month where I don't feel great. And he's like, let's see what happens. So yeah, it's just like, be curious, be open, be honest. It's not taboo. It's normal for women. We bring life into this world. It's part of that process. It's actually really powerful and really special. So I don't think there should be any shame or weirdness around it, because it's actually really, really cool. Really cool thing that
agree with
women's
it.
bodies do.
Yeah, guys, just fellas, just grow up.
Yeah,
We'll
grow
end
up.
it on that.
I
We'll end it
know.
on that. Okay, next question. As a 36-year-old male, what are your thoughts on collagen?
Yeah, for the boys. I think Bryce, you and I have talked about this in the other podcast, supplements.
We did do
Um,
a full deep dive in pod.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm kind of gonna take that same take on this. Supplements are exactly what the word says, in my opinion. It's a supplement to an already great. It's like kind of like an addition to an already great eating routine. So before you consider taking collagen, or really any supplement for that matter, are you eating 3 meals a day? Are you hitting your macros? Or how's your meal timing? How's, like, what do your meals consist of? You know, those things are, I think, a lot more important first to address before the supplement side. If those
Mhm.
things are all checked off and you're like hitting your macros, meals are great, well balanced, eating the rainbow, you got enough protein, all those good things, then yeah, I think you should look at it. Um, my knowledge on collagen's not like super awesome, so if you guys know more about it, please feel free to jump in. But um I do know it has really helpful benefits for like tissue and tendon like resiliency. Like, it allows your muscles to be more or your like tissues to be more elastic. It's not gonna hurt you. Like, I don't think, to my knowledge, you can't overconsume collagen and like turn into a freaking jello blob. But with that being said, before bringing that in, I would just make sure all other factors of nutrition are in check before you start adding in supplements.
Yeah.
But you
I
guys
agree
do.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as I'm close to the age of 36, just on the other side of it here, and the biggest thing I've seen change in, I started getting into fitness when I was like 13 basically, and the biggest thing is my recovery time is just been so different, and it's been kind of like any athlete I think goes through this. Like the body just isn't responding in the way that it used to. That doesn't mean I can't get every goal that I've ever wanted still, but I seem to be getting marketed a lot and target marketed for collagen. So anytime that happens with anything, I am a little bit hesitant to see, but I think I couldn't agree with you more. Is that the best way to say it is it's supplement for a reason. So if you're hitting all the, like, I don't want to say correct because it's my own personal beliefs with it, but if you're hitting the nutrition in the way that seems to be the optimal way for you, then it's time to look at other things after that. But if we're not hitting that base level, then why are we exploring different things yet that we don't know truly enough about? I don't know about the overconsumption thing, but I think with anything on the overconsumption side, the body's always going to find a way to level out. And I'd be curious to look into what overconsuming collagen would be like. Because I know for a lot of the fellas, especially my friends my age, we're getting hit hard with marketing and ads for increasing collagen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think like just to kind of add a little piece to that, nothing crazy though. I think the biggest thing within this too is like focus on, I think we talked about it, Jenna, like just the small rocks. The big rocks first, sorry. The big rocks first, and not so much like the small rocks and like the little nuance first beforehand. Like focus on sleep, focus on your training, focus on your nutrition, focus on hitting your protein targets and everything like that first, before you're trying to get like these optimized supplements you should be taking. Just because, again, like I don't think it's going to be that magic pill that you're looking for oftentimes, but I think it's marketed that way. That's going to be like this like life changing product that will make your life completely different, regardless of what you're doing behind the scenes. When it comes down to it, though, it's like, well, what are you doing the rest of the time? And then once you've been like training consistently enough, then maybe think about trying to add that stuff in. But when you're at a point where like you're relatively new, it's like you'll see a lot of change and a lot of progress just from like working out and actually being more conscientious of what you're doing on like a daily basis.
Yeah. I think another question, and like I hate when people do this and they like answer a question with a question, but as this man that's asking this
Sure.
question, he's like, as a 36-year-old male, should I take collagen? My question would be, what's making you ask this in the first place? Like,
Absolutely.
are you having joint pain? Did your doctor bring it up? Was someone like, your skin looks old, man? What is making this man
Yeah.
ask this? And then it's like, okay, like, would taking it actually make sense for you? I think that's like, before we even
100%.
get into the like, what are you eating in a day? It's more like, why is this even on your brain? What's making you look at this route first? And then
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah. Sometimes I often find too, it's like one of their friends is taking it,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, my buddy's taking this and he's been seeing progress with it or he's been seeing changes with it, but like they pull so much context out of it. Like they don't know what their friend's doing for workouts. They don't know like what their friend's eating. They don't know like what their training split looks like. It's like
Mhm.
there's so much that like is underlying that if you just look at the something like super subjectively, it's like, well, we don't have enough information to actually like make a decision off that.
Yeah. So just ask more questions. Also, I did a quick fact check. I actually did fact check it. And apparently collagen with vitamin C, those two, the combination together, it like I don't know if the vitamin C like activates the collagen, but it helps with collagen synthesis better. Like
Huge.
that pairing together. But again, like I said, like I'm not a supplement guru, I'm not a collagen guru. I don't really know. I threw it into Chat GPT and asked, and then that's what it told me.
Perfect. Perfect.
So what's the saying here today? Fact check, but don't fact check.
Yeah.
And if you're gonna fact check, just throw it into
Throw it into
GPT.
chat.
Yeah, okay. Don't do that, guys, first of all. Okay, so next question. What short and long-term ACL complications are the most common? Then they put like in brackets nerve damage for this individual specifically. Um, ACLs,
Yeah, holy.
knees. Yeah,
We could
okay.
be here for a whole hour.
Let's do it.
I'll speak to this as much as I can. Having had a knee surgery, I didn't have ACL surgery myself. I had MPFL reconstruction. But in terms of knee surgery, the complications are fairly similar. Short term, obviously pain. Like that shit fucking hurts. It does not feel good. You're not gonna feel like it's swollen. Those are short term within like probably the first 3 months. Limited range of motion, like someone just cut into your body's healing. It's surgery's super invasive. I don't think our bodies like being cut into, so now they're like, never let that happen again. So they're like sending all the healing mechanisms to the joint and to whatever to fix it. So you're gonna be feeling stiff. It's not gonna be feeling really nice. In some more like severe cases, sometimes people can get infections if you don't keep your incision sites clean, or I don't know, maybe there was like a complication in surgery. Sometimes infections can happen. Hopefully that never happens to people. Blood clots, no personal
Oh,
experience here, but it can happen. Just general discomfort on the graft site. Like my scars, I'm 2 years post-op and my scars still don't feel really nice. But maybe I just need to be more proactive with them. Um, and then depending on the type of graft you get, some people can get cadaver, you can get a patellar tendon graft, you can get a quad tendon graft, you can get a hamstring tendon graft. Sometimes your graft site will also be uncomfortable. So those are like the short-term complications. I don't know if you guys have any other short-term things that you're aware of.
I mean, I have some things I could probably say on it, but what about you, Rob?
Yeah, my biggest thing that I've seen just with anybody with it is pain. The underestimating the pain in the recovery,
Yeah.
and pushing too soon on it. Like that's a massive, obviously very common sports thing we see. Um, and I think it's that rush to get back is definitely something that needs to be pulled back upon, because you're gonna be dealing if it's
Yeah.
right, if you're rushed back to it, you're gonna be dealing with it for the rest of your life in some kind of like nagging capacity. So I think like so you mentioned the scars not healing in the way that you wanted to, right? But that's you've spent the time to look at what's not working with this, what is different. And again, everybody's going to heal different in it. But I think the biggest takeaway would be again, like how do you heal as opposed to someone else? How do they heal and not rushing back in the biggest thing? And I think there's a lot of underestimating the post pain when what that's going to look like and
Yeah.
the pain management side of it too.
Totally. Massive underestimation. And I love what you said about rushing back. This could be a whole other conversation in and of itself. But there's so many protocols out there on return to sport, return to run. There's like so many like, oh, by this month, by this week, you should be here. And a lot of times, not saying I'm a doctor, not saying I'm a physio, but sometimes I feel like the guidance given to some of these athletes is slightly arbitrary and it's based on calendar days rather than is this athlete passing the tests they need to be passing to be cleared to walk without crutches, to be cleared to go up and downstairs, to be cleared to start running again. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, you're at week 12. Ditch this and start running." And it's like, dude, they don't even have full flexion extension. They should not be
Yeah,
running. So, same thing like Rob said, it's the pain that you feel post surgery is it's a lot, and don't be in a as it's easier said than done, but don't be in a rush to get back just because of some arbitrary calendar number protocol. Like do your rehab, stay on top of your mobility, all the things you need to be doing so that you are getting passing the tests that you need to be passing to safely return to your activity that you were doing before this.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a big
I
one.
would I would say like only thing that I'd probably add, because again, you guys are both intelligent and very smart. Only thing I'd probably add to that is I think when somebody does come out like post op, just like going to see a physio and just kind of getting a baseline examination of where you're at, just from like a flexion extension tolerance standpoint, but also from like a rotation standpoint, and just kind of seeing like where your current strength is, like just seeing where you are, because again, if we don't have a good idea where our starting point is, it's really hard to progress accordingly based off of that. So just figuring out where somebody is actually at post op and being like, okay, well, this is where you currently are, and then very gradually building on that. It's like you guys both said too, take your time. This is not a sprint. Take your time, make sure you're doing stuff you need to be doing, stay on top of your rehab. A big thing too is protein intake. Like make sure, especially after like a post-op or injury, like protein intake needs to be up high, because it'll help you with the recovery process from like a muscular standpoint, but also from like a joint standpoint too. So there's that. And like just focus on doing things that, again, it's going to be super uncomfortable. Like Jenna mentioned, like it's not going to be fun by any means, but just doing things that like is a little bit less painful than what it is normally, and realizing that you're going to be like in this weird realm of discomfort for a while.
Yeah, like a good year. People
Yeah.
think 6 months I'll be good. Like, you guys, it's gonna be a good 9 to 12 months of discomfort. Like,
Yeah.
sorry. I
Yeah.
hate to break it to you. Saying that, it's not sexy to sell that, but it's true. You're gonna be really uncomfortable for a good 9 to 12 months. People that aren't that uncomfortable sooner, I applaud you. Good job.
Mhm.
Majority, you're not gonna be feeling nice.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah.
Just to be the old like ray of sunshine positivity over here, anyone that's, if you're in this situation right now, what a great opportunity to now exercise the mind and learn everything about yourself in this rehab time. We obviously, I think we look to a lot of like professional athletes and what their recovery time looked like. And especially up here in Edmonton, when this happened with Connor McDavid, he was back in the next season, and there was multiple. It was ACL, MCL, PCL, everything, and that's not you. You know, you don't have that team around you, or maybe you do, and maybe you are that level of pro, and comparing to others and their timelines. And I think it was such a cool thing to say is looking at that calendar, and instead of the biological calendar that you have, you know. And I think we're starting to see this now too. There's way more separation from biological age as opposed to like, God, what's the term? Chronological, I guess it would be.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, that's a big one too. And there's a predominant thing. I'm like, I really love sports, and our Edmonton guy here that is the captain of Canada Soccer was, there's a whole bunch going on in that world right now. There was an ACL tear that happened in the Canada versus US game recently, and his club team Bayern Munich is saying that it was mishandled because there was an injury before, and now there's a lawsuit towards, and again, fact check me, but don't fact check me. There's a lawsuit going towards the Canada men's and the trainers and everything and how it was handled. And now we're looking at our star of the team being out at a club level and on the national team for, like you said, up to a year, right? And we have World Cup next year, so it is a hot topic right now with a lot of this. And then all of a sudden you have miracle healers that can like come be back in months, you know. So you got to know
yeah,
you, and it's individual. And no, don't rush it, because you rushing back to this is the rushing back the wrong way is going to set you back and take you out of whatever you
yeah,
love doing. You know, they got you there in the first place. So do you?
yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
Also, I know we didn't talk about the long-term complications because I want to make sure the person that asked this gets that answer. But Bryce, go ahead and then we can talk on the long-term things and then keep it moving.
On that now, if you like, I was going to move on to another question after, but you can add context to
Yeah,
that for sure before we
just
move on.
because this person was talking about nerve damage and all that kind of stuff. And nerve, like feeling sensation in the nerves. And I'm sure, Bryce, you've probably experienced this a lot with your demographic that you work with. And Rob, I'm not sure if you've had athletes that experience this, but the nerve damage situation is like the last thing to return. Nerves take a really long time to heal, like months, sometimes years, because like the way they lay themselves down. And I have like loss of feeling, not loss of feeling, but it's kind of like the layers of the skin. The top layer of my skin, it's still numb. And it's been 2 years. But mind you, I've also had 3 knee surgeries, so that's like compounded nerve damage over years. So that one, sometimes it doesn't come back, actually. Like that's actually kind of a sad truth. And then when this person's talking about nerve damage, I don't know if they mean like within the joint or just on the surface of the skin. Because if you touch my knee right now, it's like feels like kind of fuzzy. Like it feels like pins and needles. And I have no idea if that will ever go away. I've had it for 2 years, even longer actually, like 10 years. So
Mhm.
depends on the person. But other long-term complications, a lot of it actually does kind of what Rob was mentioning, can come from mismanaging the rehab process. So like ongoing knee instability, maybe it could be an anatomical situation, like your body's built that way and this like that's what you are struggling with. Or it could be you had a kind of shitty rehab plan and you didn't strengthen the things that needed to be strengthened, which normally is what happens and it's really annoying. But it does happen. Don't have full extension or flexion. Again, sometimes this is an anatomical issue and you can't ever fix it. Or sometimes it comes from being mismanaged and not being on top of the rehab, not being given the proper exercises, and also on the athlete not being consistent enough. Um, Quad weakness and atrophy, again, same thing. Are you doing your rehab properly? Do you have a good rehab plan to build that stuff back? And then another one that we can't really control is sometimes there's graft failure. So after 3 months of surgery, sometimes it is possible that sometimes the graft won't take, and then you have to get it redone. Because again, that's just like in the body. I don't know what goes on in there. I don't know what our bodies do, but there are cases. There are cases where sometimes.
You don't? Come on, Jen.
Well, I mean, like I don't know what the cells are doing, like at the
Come on.
incision site. Like I don't
You
know
had
if
one.
they're.
You had one job today.
I don't
You
know
had
if they're
one
like.
job today. Okay, to know
I don't
what
know if they're
cells
cutting.
do on a molecular level. That's your
No,
one job today.
I don't know if they're sewing shit back up. I have no idea. So sometimes the
Yeah.
graft won't take, and yeah, I actually don't know the science behind that. But in terms of long-term complications, those are the most common. Oftentimes, it's like Bryce, we talked about this last time too. It's like the pain or the symptom that you're experiencing is normally kind of like a trickle down effect of something else. And so
Always.
normally a lot of those like loss of range of motion, instability in the knee, normally it comes from a mismanaged rehab plan. Is at least
Oh
that's what
yeah.
I find in my personal experience.
Yeah. Yeah. Unless we want to add to that, we could move along to the next question. I think that's a lot of meat and potatoes there for that part of it. So the next thing, and I kind of wanted to touch upon it before we moved on further, was someone mentioned here meniscus injuries. And I think these kind of go hand in hand, and that's why I wanted to just like talk about it right now too. Again, like the obviously the knee itself is just supposed to flex and extend. So as soon as the knee's having to
It
do
does
more
some
than
wild
that,
things.
yeah, as soon as the knee's having to do more than that, and if as soon as it's having to laterally stabilize, it's having to laterally move back and forth, there's some sort of dysfunction through the hip, through the foot, or some sort of shear force issue. And that could obviously lead to there being injuries or a prolonging of an injury recovery. So I would say kind of like what we just touched upon with the ACL complications itself too. Go in and get your meniscus stuff checked out. That's probably the same thing. Is just see like what's actually going on. But then from there too, it's like find things that just don't bother it. It's like very similar to what we just touched upon. Find things that don't bother it. Likely it might just be some more like hip flexion based dominant stuff for a while too, where you're not getting too much knee flexion for a while. But if it allows you to still give you some stimulus from the quads, then that's going to be a good thing, right? But again, the thing that always kind of underlies with all this stuff, and you're going to probably get sick and tired of hearing it, I'm going to say it a lot, is it depends, because context is always super important. Needing to know what happened, how long it's been hurting for, needing to know a lot of information with that too. But as far as the meniscus stuff goes, it's like go get a professional opinion. Please, for the love of God, don't just Google it. Um, go get a professional opinion. Have someone that you trust take a look at it too. Have them give you a bit of a plan to work off of, and go get it reassessed. Right. Oh, and the next thing, if it stops hurting, don't stop doing stuff for it. People always, they will do their stuff. They'll get to a point where like, oh, this feels pretty good. They'll stop doing all their stuff that they've been doing that's making it feel good, and then it hurts again. So continue the stuff that you've been doing, find progressions of those things, then continue just living your life. Any thoughts from the crew?
I think that's perfect. That's perfect right there. You ended that perfectly. Tie it up, move it on.
Okay. Okay. So the next thing could be supplementation regarding tendonitis.
Love it.
I think we could all say a lot on this, but I want to hear Jen's take first.
Yeah. So you guys know how I feel about supplements. Um, and this kind of ties into the question that we just had before, where the person was asking about exercises for meniscus injuries, and now someone's
Mhm.
asking about supplements for preventing certain things. There is no such thing as a cure-all. It just doesn't, like, there's no special pill you can take. There's no one exercise that's going to change your life. And I think social media gives people this false sense of hope in that sense. They're like, oh, try this game-changing exercise. It's going to heal your broken spine. It's like, well, no, it's not. There's so many other things that play into injury and our body's ability to heal. So if we're ever, for anyone listening, if you're ever looking for like that one solution, that one missing piece of the puzzle, there's probably like 6 other pieces that are missing. And there's no one exercise or one supplement that's going to cure things. It's a multitude of factors that will play into your body's healing and just overall health. So with that being said, for tendonitis, it's actually not a supplement issue. Don't get me wrong, they probably could contribute and help, but it's actually an exercise situation. Um, Tendonitis, the breakdown is inflammation in the tendon. Oh, excuse me. It's inflammation in the tendon, so your tendon essentially is pissed off. And it's pissed off, it could be for a multitude of reasons. Maybe you're overtraining, maybe you've been like overloading, it could be a multitude of things, running too much, jumping too much, whatever. One of the big things with any kind of tendonitis is you have to stop pissing it off. So you actually, and I hate this prescription because it's like, it annoys me, but it's actually so true. Tendonitis is actually one of those things where you actually do have to take time off
Do
sometimes.
less.
You
Do
do
less.
actually have to do less, because if you just keep doing more, you're basically just like your tendon's pissed off and then you just like keep hammering the sore spot. It's just going to keep being sore. So you actually do have to peel back the layers. You have to reduce training volume, reduce training load, change your exercises, change what you're doing. Do you have to fully stop moving? No, of course not.
No.
But you do have to move differently. And generally it means you're swapping, instead of heavy back squat, now maybe you're doing like a loaded wall sit in your pain-free ranges. Maybe you're practicing more like impact stuff. Like maybe you're doing, I don't know, snap downs, or um, little mini depth drops, like having your tendons work on absorbing force because they've been exposed to something that they weren't prepared for. So yeah, that's my long-winded spiel on tendonitis. There's a lot
Yeah.
of things going on there.
Yeah, I think
Rob,
I
do you want to
agree
add to it? Yeah.
completely. Yeah, I agree completely. Is my experience with it came from overuse, overtraining, and dehydration was a huge part of it too. So the answer to me is not found in the supplement world for that. I'm sure there are things that can speed up the recovery back, but I'd be a little bit out of my lane speaking to that. But the biggest thing for me, and I'm always going to put this spin on it, and again, it's taken me some time in the industry to get to fully grasp and accept this truth, is that you got to take a step back, but that step back doesn't have to be viewed as a negative thing. It's a great opportunity to learn a lot more about yourself on the psychological level towards what you're trying to do, and on the physiological level too. I might be pulling this out of somewhere, but I feel like there's some good isometric based work that can really help bring that back as well. And I might be pulling this out of the same place, but I know going back to ACL as well, there's a lot of good isometric style exercises that can help bring it back. That's all I would really speak to on that. We get asked about supplements all the time, and I find it really goes in what's trending on social media, unfortunately. But it doesn't have to be a bad thing as long as we're asking questions and not just taking blind information without doing our own due diligence. And we're going to keep circling back to that. Like, these are great questions, and sure, we're in the industry and we know a lot of great things, but we don't know the average person asking these things, and there's so many other factors to it. But my big thing has come from dehydration. It has come from overuse and then rushing back ahead of time, just trying to get right after it. Or I know when I got into this industry, there was still a lot of the whole pain and gain and like push through, suck it up, all that. And all that's doing is pushing back your true return farther and farther and farther. And it takes discipline, but what a great time you could use in your time coming back to learn all the other facets that maybe you skipped that led you to this position in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that bit that you made there about like really shifting the focus to like building mental fortitude. I think a lot of people like that's generally when they'll tend to spiral, and they'll lose sense of themselves, and they'll also just like they'll begin to get into a pretty negative spiral and a rut because they again they're at a place where they are no longer able to do things that they were doing. And from like a athletic standpoint or from like a sports standpoint, that could be like really challenging for people to have to navigate too. And I think one piece I wanted to add to that, if you guys are all good on your end, is BFR. So I think BFR could be like really, really solid for ACL, meniscus, PCL, all that stuff too. And for people that don't know what BFR is, it stands for blood flow restriction training. Get somebody to teach you how to do it properly. Um, but the whole point and concept of it is you're creating compression through a certain area. Usually it's going to be above a joint. Yeah. And then what we're going to do is after that, we're going to have some compression on it. We are going to then unload the compression, right? And then what's going to happen is we're going to have a bunch of blood and oxygen running to the musculature, the surrounding joints, and with that too, helping elicit and promote more recovery. So again, it can be really nice for like a prep, right? If you're doing something on a day where maybe you are doing some stuff where you're doing things you're not used to doing, or if you find that it's going to help you build some tolerance, maybe it's through flexion, through extension, or whatever it may be. Especially if you have an injury in a unilateral setting, so single leg too. But yeah, I think BFR is often kind of slept on and not talked about enough. And I do think it definitely has a place in like a rehab setting, or even in like a hypertrophy setting too.
Yeah. BFR is a great way to get the volume without the load. So like you don't need to, like, you can get pretty similar stimulus through BFR as you would with like loading up with weight, which
Yeah.
is nice because normally when you're in pain and then you add load, it just makes the pain worse.
Yeah.
So BFR is a really great way to kind of like stimulate that same that same stimulus
Yeah.
without the extra pain on it. With that being said, Bryce said something at the start. Please get an educated professional to teach you this, either whether it's in a clinical setting or like a coaching scenario. Don't be like strapping things around your legs and being like, "Yeah, I'm doing BFR." Like, please don't do that. It can be very dangerous if you do it wrong.
Also, just don't pull that out of context too. Strap things around your legs. Yeah.
There's so much you could take.
Jeez.
Okay, we'll move it forward here. So we got a couple more questions, and I think these ones are gonna be really good. The next one here, and I think it's because we just talked about it too. Someone asked the impact of stress on implications of health, and I wanted to do this one next because we just kind of talked about mental fortitude. So let's dive into stress, and I want to hear Rob's take first.
I was gonna say I want
Sure.
Rob to go first.
Yeah, this is an aggressive one on my end. Now, I'll preface it with I can only speak to myself and what I've experienced, and I've experienced a lot. Stress is a mind and body killer, and I believe that a huge contribution to me still sitting here at this age is learning my stress relief patterns. Because when I am stressed, my system's shut down, and I've gotten to levels of stress that have put me in the hospital before. And again, I have no problem admitting this. I'll champion recovery all day long. What happened to me is I had metabolic, like my metabolic rate shut down. I had, the sexual drive shut down. I've had so many things shut down because I didn't know how to handle stress, and I was in put myself in stressful situations, and that's a whole other topic to get into. But the big thing for me is, gosh, where do we even begin with this? There's so much. I have so much to say on this, so I'll try to keep it short and simple. But if I'm worried and I'm stressed, my body is thinking that there's a threat around me that's could take my life, whether that is. And like as we learn more and as we talk more about consciousness and the brain and everything, we do learn, like there's the lizard brain still, not the reptile brain. For anyone's listening, I'm not speaking about reptile anything, but that lizard brain, that stress is saying, hey, there's a threat to you somewhere. So what used to be a saber-toothed tiger coming to kill me is now like, oh, I didn't like this comment I saw on social media, and now here comes we got the first cat that hopped up here. We're going to throw that down. So that brings me into a thing. We were chatting before this, and I happened to read a study about how cats and what stress did to their digestive system. And they would have a cat, and to me, a cat is a very like highly efficient, athletic animal. Those things are ninjas. But as soon as they introduced the dog and a stressing factor, all these things shut down. Digestion was shutting down. There was kind of some like nervous behaviors that were beginning. And this all goes back to how do we find that stress relief for it? So I know I have the luxury in my life where almost 80% of my day is combating this. I wake up, I have my whole routine that is in there as a framework to get that stress out of my life. I then have a million hobbies that bring out the passion and reignite me. And I just want to make sure I understand this question perfectly. And what was the follow-up part on how does stress affect the performance?
Yeah, it's just I was mentioning how does stress impact implications of health.
Yeah, perfect. So not only when I'm under that too, and cortisol is going up, I'm not accessing the highest faculties of my brain and my thought process, and even the information I have on how to get out of this. And this is something I'm deeply passionate about. And every day I take a little bit more information in, and it's gotten to a very interesting point where I can go through a high stress situation. I'm aware of the high stress situation, but I am aware that I have a lot of knowledge on what gets me personally out of these, and I can't access it. So what I've been trying to do is sit and experience it, knowing that it will end, knowing that I do have ways out, but I find it fascinating to see how much of myself shuts down and goes into fight or flight, or it's absolutely vicious what it's doing, especially in the gut. And anybody that's interested in this, I highly recommend looking into what stress and anxiety and the high cortisol and all that is doing to our stomachs, because I'm going to get a little anecdotal here. And my mother's worked in endoscopy for a long time, and they see a high level of, Crohn's colitis and all those kind of things. And as we start to connect more, a lot of it's coming from high stress situations. Now I understand I'm out of my lane there speaking, but I can only speak to what I've experienced and seen. And for people that are listening to this and coming from a place of performance or athleticism, your your sport is a huge de-stressor. Your gym is a de-stressor, but it can also be a stressor. And I think it is very important as humans that we're always looking at what is around me. Like, knowledge is power. What's going to come to me that could be a stressor that could throw me off, and what is then my remedy for that? And there are so many incredible people that can say a lot smarter things than I can on this. But for me, without doing my own due diligence into this field, I I don't know. I truly don't know if I'd be here saying this thing. It seems that some people we know are under stress 24/7. And some people thrive under it too. It goes back to, it's different for all of us, but knowing that it shuts my systems down, knowing that I can't access we call it my highest self, and even knowledge I have on this field, if not having those stress releases. For me, it's like I'm kind of like even though I'm up in Edmonton, a California guy, like I like surfing, skateboarding, like the classic de-stressors. Um, Having a little smoke before the gym, perhaps, to bring it back full circle. But stress is a part of life. It can be good for you, it can be bad for you, it can shape. But on the inside level, for me, when it gets high, and the research is there that it's not doing anything positive for us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think just like there's a lot of great points within that too about how it just shuts down your entire body. And like also what you mentioned there about the Crohn's and all that stuff. And I think from what I've heard or from what I've experienced, and again, don't quote me, but don't quote me on this, is IBS. A lot of that stuff is all triggered by high
Mhm.
stress too, right? So like IBS, and then that obviously dictates your gut. The gut's the second brain, right? So we got all that stuff going on too. So if you're constantly in a state where you're super super high stress, high cortisol, it'll be impacting a lot of things: weight gain, weight loss, which will impact your body composition goals. It'll obviously impact your sleep, which then it'll impact your performance to trickle effect. So like we think that it's like something minor, but I think what Rob really attested there too is like, and I want to really amplify the importance of it, is finding healthy outlets for yourself. You know,
Mhm.
it can't just be substance abuse. It can't just be certain things, but finding things that like really make you feel disconnected, that make you feel like your cup is full, that make you feel like you're fulfilled, that you're happy, and you can rely on to help you work through whatever you're working through. And knowing what those things are too, right? Because oftentimes we can't rely on one thing or the other, and we don't want to be coming from a place of reliance either, too.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just gonna add a small piece to what you guys both said, um, because it was so great. 'Cause, well, I don't want people sitting here being like, "Oh, I should never be stressed." Oh
No,
my
yeah, you're
god.
right.
Because, well, you guys said a lot of great things, and even Rob did, because he was like, you mentioned a few things like too much of something is never good, like never want too much of stress. But another big thing you mentioned was like environment as well. Is we can't always control stress-inducing situations, not always, like work. Sometimes we can't control work, but you can control how you remedy it. And I think that's the biggest thing is like focus on the basics, Are you eating enough food? Are you getting a good sleep? Are you hanging out with good people? Are you spending time with people that fill up your cup, like Bryce had mentioned? Are you pouring back into yourself? And I know it sounds kind of woo woo, but it's true because our body doesn't know how to decipher stress. Like it's the same. Getting chased by a bear versus watching like an intense chase scene in a movie, your body interprets it the same. It has no idea how to interpret it any differently. So although getting chased by a bear might be a lot more scary than an intense fight scene in a movie, your body doesn't know that it like he was talking about lizard brain, not the reptile brain. Your body doesn't decipher it differently. Like it triggers you the same way. So knowing when those feelings of stress come up and having really great outlets for bringing that stress back down, pouring back into yourself, those are the key things here. And it sounds it's not easy, but it is simple. That's the biggest thing here is the solutions often are simple. It's more just taking the time to listen to your body, understand what's going on, take a look at your surroundings, the environments you put yourself in, and then adjusting from there.
Mhm. I might
Yeah.
to say one other thing too, because I'm passionate about this, and I couldn't agree with you guys more. I This works for me. Not saying everybody do it. It just works for me. And I think it's kind of a cool thing. But I put after doing the wrong thing, in my opinion, over and over and over again, and using escapism. And anybody that is in this situation right now and using escapism, zero judgment, zero shame. I spent a lot of time in that world looking for answers external when the answers were always internal, and I've seen that repeated over and over and over again until I finally. We used to say this back in the '90s until I finally got the net and looked into like the system. So I'm a big what's the word I'm looking for? I champion the systems that I put in place to help this. And when my stress goes, I get shame then that comes in from my stress. I'm like, oh, I'm so stressed. What? I have a great life. Why? Oh, then shame. Oh, nothing's happened. And then what goal? I'm not even focused on any life goals, training goals that I have at that point. But I really believe that there's a huge power, and I think that this podcast can attest to it in community and having those conversations, because I know there's times when I'm very lucky to be at the training out of the vault with wonderful coaches, including Bryce in Edmonton. And I know there are times when I get there and I'm stressed. I'm stressed about, I'm going to be a dad for the first time in my life this summer. Like there's crazy stress in my life, but it's kind of fun. Yeah, it's so cool. And I go and I have conversations with other people, and and as coaches in fitness, I think we're viewed sometimes almost like we're trying to be superhumans. I'm like, people ask me what my goals are now at this age. I'm literally trying to be like, again, the best man, father, friend I can be. But I'm really trying to turn myself into a superhuman here. And I want to be a superhero. I've been wanting that since I was a kid. It was like my first goal. So I'm still like trying to get there. And I just think it's important to look at the brain like the muscle too. We focused really hard on the external and the aesthetic side and the strength side. And I love that stuff. That's what got me into this world. But then I was empty on the inside, and I said, "How am I? How I have on the gram? It sure looks like life is awesome, but I'm dying here from stress on the inside." And it just happened and happened and happened again until I put systems in place. Now, it doesn't mean I wake up and I follow this military schedule of, well, sometimes I like it, to be honest, but it's like I'm up 5 a.m., cold shower, my protein coffee and this. And there are days that is there for me and it's great. But the most important part of these systems for me is on the days when my brain goes and the stress is overwhelming, and it will get there again. I've seen enough in this life to know that it's not just going to go away. There's not some magic fix. It's how many repetitions can I get and get better at this. And I have a system for that in place to fall back on if it ever gets squirrely. And that system took a lot of learning. But I'll tell you, when I wake up and I feel that, that really can hit you in the morning when you first get there, I'll feel that crushing weight for a second. And then that good old lizard brain will pop back up and be like, no, you got a system in place for this. So build your systems, and you can apply those systems anywhere, anything. If it's even starting a podcast, okay, here's the system of how I'm going to do that. And if it's not working, check your systems, readjust.
Yeah. I think one piece to add to that is like again, a lot of great points within this too is just like Rob mentioned too, like finding a community where you can comfortably talk about your stuff. I think for men, it's being more comfortable with the idea of talking to men. I think for women, generally, women have an easier time, again, speaking very subjectively here. Women have an easier time expressing, understanding their emotions and stuff, and they feel more comfortable having these conversations. But for guys, it's like, hey, find a community and find a group that you're okay with having these conversations with. And if you don't have one, find one. It's like, hey, look for people that you can have these talks with. But the biggest thing I wanted to add to that too is like just feel your emotions. I think what we tend to do is we tend to not feel them, which tends to extend the stress, the suffering that we're feeling. But a lot of it is self-created because we're not wanting to process and like register these thoughts and these emotions and these feelings. So again, everything that we kind of just touched upon here, but also just like surrounding yourself with a good community and environment that allows you to express these things, but also allowing yourself to like feel things when they are kind of shitty or just feel things when you are upset too. Because I think that's really important for like processing and also like grieving whatever you're currently
Mhm.
going through.
Yeah.
Yeah, you feel it now or feel it later. You know, it's gonna find
Straight
a
up.
way. Yeah.
Your body will always whisper to you before it starts to scream. Straight up. Like,
Um,
when you get that little whisper, don't just be like, deal with that
yeah.
later. Stress it out. Like, listen to it. And, like, it's uncomfortable. It's not fun to go in there and be like, where is this coming from? It doesn't feel nice. But, like Rob just said, feel it now or feel it later. And normally, when you feel it later, there's 10 other things that are screaming to be felt as well. So, take it one day at a time. Listen to the whispers.
This thought just came to me here. I know we're spending a lot of time on this too, but I think this one will really reach a lot of people. And this is something that everybody can relate to specifically. But what got me started in, like, I very much came from the world of, I have no problem doing this, like, bro science. And, like, I was like, I only read books about how the Navy SEALs dealt with stuff. And there's a piece of that I still like, but I had completely shut out a huge of the mind, body, soul like trinity that I love so much now. But what started me is in conversations with clients, which is literally what has been such a wonderful part of the whole personal training experience for me is I've learned so much in fields that I never would have got into. And I had let it build up. I wasn't feeling I was only using escapism to the point where I was working with a woman and my eyes were twitching. Like this, and apparently this is a huge stress thing when Jenna said the body will tell you, it'll scream at you sometimes. I know for me, if I don't deal with it, it'll shut me down. Like it will completely shut me down with sicknesses I can't even explain that have happened. But my eye was twitching and it was very obvious that something was happening to me. And I had a client say, hey, like, have you ever done a grounding exercise? I was like, what is this? Like, what is a grounding exercise? Now I'm sitting here owning a company called Alchemy Strength, and this is my whole world now. And pretty much everything I'm into now, I'm sure could be called woo woo by somebody, but I did a grounding exercise and I can't. I had it was its own kind of rock bottom, and I had enough. And we did some breathing, I did some visualization, and I felt like I had 8 extra like tentacles coming out of me to get things done. It was incredible, and I've been chasing, trying to understand what happened there that day back in 17 now, for so long. And that's what got me into this whole thing of pursuit of knowledge on how to become better in every possible way. But this is something that you're not going to be able to escape. It's going to happen. You're never going to live a stress-free life because where's the fun in that, right? We're not going to evolve. We're not going to become people. But having your systems in place and how to deal with it, feel it now or feel it later, it's going to find a way. It always will.
Mhm.
Yeah. I have nothing to add to that. That was perfectly bow tied.
Right.
Um, There's just like two questions left, but I'm gonna piece them together. Just because I think they're both kind of like they can kind of segue off of each other. So one of these questions is, when people say they're in a bulk or cut, what does that mean? And then to kind of build onto that too, someone mentioned a question about fitting in favorite foods or planning for social outings. So
Yeah,
we could talk about the bulking or cutting first, but then I think it can kind of nicely segue into also fitting in foods that you like into your life.
sure. In terms of bulk or cut, I think hold those words loosely. I think individuals have their own uh definition of it. Some people might be like, "Oh yeah, I'm in a bulk right now," and they're eating McDonald's like 7 times a day, and like there's no, it's kind of just like free for all. And then some people are in a bulk and they're like, "Oh, I need to make a new weight class for this, and so I'm doing this, this, and that." Or some people are like, "I'm trying to build back my quad after surgery," or like everyone has different reasons for it. So I think number one is knowing like what is the purpose of their bulk or cut. But from like a definition standpoint, a bulk tends to be just like another word for being in a calorie surplus. So you have your maintenance calories, that is what your body's like bare minimum nutritional needs to sustain life. A bulk tends to be anything where you're eating above that, so calorie surplus, or you're eating more food than what your body needs. And then a cut is the flip side of that. So again, same thing. A cut, normally it means you're trying to cut weight for something, you're trying to lose body fat, you're trying to get leaner, whatever it is. That's normally what a cut is. And then a cut is just another word for a calorie deficit, where you're eating below your maintenance because you want to lose muscle, or sorry, lose fat, lose weight, whatever it might
Yeah.
be. So
Yeah.
from like a definition standpoint, that's what they mean. Do you guys want to speak more to that?
So in the pop culture world, we hear a lot about it. I think it gets used as an excuse sometimes too, but like increasing mass, decreasing body fat percentage, all of that there too. It's definitely a bit of a buzz thing, I think, as well. But I can go. We can talk about a larger part of this, which would be like important, like cycling through different like periodization as opposed to like the same thing all the time. So if anything, going back to like the true base of it is just proper periodization, which is how your program is going to evolve and change as you go, and you're not just doing the same thing over and over and over again. In the bro world, for the fellas, which we hear a lot, it's yeah, I'm just not watching my diet right now. I'm just putting on that mask, then cut for beach season. And it can be as harmless as that too. But that's just more of the pop culture side of it.
Yeah. I have some things to say about this, as I usually do. Bulking and cutting. So I'd say the biggest thing is definitely figure out the approach you want to go. I think Jenna spoke to it too, and then even Rob, about like figuring out what you should be doing with it. If you want to lose weight, biggest piece of advice is do it slow. If you want to gain weight, biggest piece of advice is do it slow. Find your maintenance level. Again, for context here, your maintenance will change depending on your lean body mass, depending on your training age, depending on a lot of different factors and variables. So your maintenance is not going to be the same. So if you haven't done it in a while, redo your maintenance, track your food for like a week at probably, and just see kind of how your body responds to that. Find your baseline, or like your homeostasis, where your weight's not fluctuating a ton. That'll give you your maintenance, and then make adjustments from there. I'm always on like the advocating side for it, like less is more in that sense, where like take a little bit of food away first, see how your body responds, increase your activity. Okay. So if you're trying to cut, little bit of food away, increase your activity. Maybe it's increasing steps, maybe it's increasing a training day per week, whatever it may be. And then I think a good rule of thumb to kind of tie into this as well is, if you are cutting, increase protein intake, probably aim for 1.2 gram per pound. If you're bulking, lower to 0.8. Reason for that is when you're going to be doing a bulk, for example, you're going to have more calories in general. So you probably aren't going to need as high of protein. Also, 0.8 is shown to be like all you technically need. But fact check me, but don't fact check me on that. And then also, if you are cutting, you want to hold on to muscle, right? So if you don't want to let's say you just did a bulk and you just put on some weight too, you want to hold on to the tissue that you just put on. So what I'd advise doing is aim for a little bit higher. So that way, when you are losing weight, you're holding on to tissue, but also here too, you're recovering well, because your energy levels will likely be lower when you are cutting, especially as your cut prolongs and as you're further in, energy levels will tank a little bit. So just focusing on eating the proper food, and giving yourself what you need for that. I think it's a lot of stuff that I added to that, but I think it's
No,
good.
that's great. I have a caveat for that. Sorry. Because I know we want to talk about birthday parties and stuff, but I
Social audience in general, I think, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think one more thing for the cut situation, and I notice this a lot with my female clients. I don't know if you guys notice this as much. I don't coach any men, so I have no idea if men experience this, but a lot of times women will come to me and they're already under eating, and their goal is weight loss or fat loss. And they're like, yeah, let's get into a cut. I'm like, whoa, you can't take away from what you don't have. So
Up to
for
the food
people
first, yeah.
that yeah,
Yeah.
so for people that their goal is weight loss or getting leaner, you just want to experiment what it's like for a cut, to do it safely and to have long-term sustainable results that last you a long time, make sure your body's in a position to actually do a cut safely. Like if you're someone who's eating like 1200 calories a day and then you cut your food by 3 to 500 calories, that's incredibly unsafe and not
Mhm.
sustainable for a long period of time. So from a female standpoint, I noticed the girlies tend to be under eating already. So probably a little reverse diet, get up to your maintenance, maybe even a little bit above maintenance, and then safely do a cut. That's how I'd like to approach it. Um, and bottom line,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you've never done this, it's really helpful to do it with a coach and to have them guide you through it rather than you chat GPTing, fact checking, YouTubing, trying to figure out what to do. It's really, really, whenever I did my first bulk and cut and I wanted to learn more about nutrition, I hired a coach and I was like, can you walk me through this process? So that's another
Yeah.
thing. If you're really,
Yeah.
really curious about it, it's really helpful to do it with someone that's done it a million times.
Yeah. I think one piece I wanted to add to that quickly too is I'm sure people see it all the time too, especially like men too, but I think especially for women, is they'll follow like their favorite influencer, and maybe their influencer is like deep into prep, and they see the calories, they see everything like that too, and they're like, oh, that's what you need to eat to be that lean. Remember, they worked down to get to that point. So if you take one thing away from this episode, it's that's not where they started, very likely. But when they are deep into their cut, that's where their calories are at that point in time. But they didn't start there. They probably were at a maintenance or a surplus phase first, and then they worked their way down as they've gotten leaner, as their body fat's lowered, and as their demands have changed. So don't start off with like what Jenna mentioned, like a 500 calorie deficit, because maybe you could be in a 100 calorie deficit and be losing weight. So like just see how your body responds to it. Like keep food in as long as you can, because the more food you're eating, you're able to perform better, sleep better, you're able to recover better. Oh man, there's so many things with this. So just make sure that again, you guys are, if you are trying to do one of these things, it's just be strategic with it before you just jump in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree.
And the next piece would just be the social outings. What do you guys have to say about that?
Yeah, I want Rob to go first.
Yeah. Well, I tried to find every way around this system when I was first really taking this serious, even just as like my own fitness and starting to realize that, for anyone that doesn't know, I spent most of my 20s on tour performing in a band, and that is pretty much at that point in that was, I guess, like mid 2000s, was the exact opposite of what health and fitness look like. So it was definitely the other end of the spectrum. But I was lucky enough that the people I was in a band with had an interest in bodybuilding, and we were all kind of ex athletes as well. But I'll be honest, we had an event every single night for at least 3 years. Excuse me, where I would feel in my head, oh my gosh, I'm getting healthier. I'm so sick of drinking. I'm so sick of doing these things. But we are paid to do these events at night where you would just have to. Now, and no one held a gun to my head. And when I get into this, I'm not anti alcohol. I'm anti alcohol for me. And it took learning and some hard times to get there. But I looked into, and I'm sure the science is like it's evolved since then. But I was looking into how many, like, you hear all these little hacks at the club, like, oh, just vodka waters, or like if you're having a training day the next day, it's like, okay, we'll take it a little easy tonight. My experience is if I'm going out and partying, I am not going to sleep that night. I'm not going to wake up wanting to go to the gym. My goals are done, and now this is a little bit out of my lane. I'm sure you guys can speak to this more on a physiological level. What's happening inside me is not in any capacity whatsoever, in any capacity. So we can take this farther back. And I know for me, if I could have talked to myself back then, I would be like, hey, Rob, instead of trying to find the hacks to do this, what is making you do this in the first place? Why do I feel like if I'm going out to a birthday party and do this, I need to get drunk to do it? And that's not a knock on anybody, because there were a time where I believed I couldn't go out unless I did that, and no one would like me if I wasn't funny or not. So there's a root cause there that, as we kind of further, and I don't mean to take this into addiction and stuff, but if we're looking for ways to cheat a system that probably isn't the best for you in the first place, and this would be my more harsher take on this, what is causing that? Is there a social anxiety that's caused that? Because there's a billion other steps we can take in a much healthier way to do it. Now, for the average person, if I was sitting here in my 20s on this pod, I would be like, well, what are you talking about, man? Like, it's just not realistic. I'm going to go out and have some beverages. I have friends that in their 20s, they wanted to party, and they had the extravagant birthdays, and they're fun, and I'm glad I did them. But I wish I would have looked deeper into what was causing this, and I never had a good workout that next day. Now, let me play devil's advocate for a second. I was very much into powerlifting, and I didn't sleep for 2 days one time and pulled my first 500. So Who knows what happened there? Maybe I wasn't in my own head with it, but I know yeah, that's the one thing. And I think about it all the time. I'm like, what was different that day? I got off the plane, I went to the gym. I was like, all right, let's do it. And I was like, why today? But again, I tried to find it every single way. We know that alcohol is inhibiting protein synthesis, so your recovery. I've heard, and I don't. This might be myth. I've heard, like up to just if you're gonna go out and do it, just don't train that next day. Just take some time, get back to homeostasis, go that next thing. And now for the younger squad, you guys can probably speak to more of what's happening out there now.
Yeah. I feel very strongly about this. Rob, you said something really powerful. You're like, I'm not anti-alcohol, I'm anti-alcohol for me.
Mhm.
I'm incredibly anti-alcohol for myself for a multitude of reasons, family history, addiction, stuff like that. And I know social outings don't always have to be alcohol, but I've just in my age demographic, I've noticed that it's a very big thing. Based on personal life experience, it actually kind of hurts my heart to see how romanticized alcohol
Mhm.
consumption is. Like, it's almost like if you're not drinking, something's wrong with you. And I think that narrative needs to change
Mhm.
because, like Rob said, it's like, I don't do you need alcohol to have fun? Don't get me wrong, it can be super enjoyable and like, different sides of your personality come out and you're a little more confident, a little more, you're not as stressed, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, I think it's a crutch for people and it's like, do I actually need this? Is this supporting my goals? When you're planning around social outings, it's like, what is this social outing for? Is it a work event? Is it a friend's birthday? Is it an engagement party? What's the importance of the event? What's its importance to you? How important is the consumption of alcohol for this event? Does it need to be a part of it? Do you want it to be a part of it? Does it align with who you're trying to be? There's so many things that kind of play into this. And then on like a science level, like what's going on in the body, with alcohol, alcohol truly is a toxin. It's one of the only toxins or poisons in the world that's actually that people actually. Bryce, is your dog okay? I can hear him barking.
He's
He
like,
ate
let's
his
get a
treat.
drink.
He ate that treat. Yeah. The dog's like, shut up, I love alcohol. Um with it, it is a toxin, and it's one of the only toxins that's actually like pushed onto people, and it's like, yeah, you should drink, and it's like, well, should you? And then when you actually think about its impact on the body, the best way I can explain it is, imagine the busiest road in your city, wherever you live in the world. Imagine the busiest road in your city. Now imagine it's rush hour, and now imagine there's an ambulance trying to get through. How fucking brutal is that? It's like, holy, it takes forever. Everyone's got to move aside, get the ambulance through, and then even after the ambulance is through, there's still residual traffic from that experience. And essentially, that's the best way I can explain what alcohol does to your body. Is your body, because it's a toxin, it's got to break down alcohol first. That breakdown process puts everything else kind of on pause or on the back burner, and then everything's slowed after that because of alcohol. And it's not just slowed for the hour or two or three that you are drinking, it's slowed for like days afterwards. Alcohol's half-life, I forget, I think every one drink is, oh, I can't remember the exact numbers. It's at least 8 hours to break down 1 ounce of alcohol. So if you have 5 drinks, 5 times 8, that's 40. That's 40 hours to break down 5 drinks. And I bet you're going to train on the next day. What's your training going to be like now with the alcohol still in your system? So there's a lot that goes into it, and literally zero shame on anyone that enjoys drinking and going out with friends. But there are levels to it. And I think Rob brought in a great point. It's what role does it play in your life? How do you view it? Why do you consume it? Is it conducive to your goals and the life that you want to live? So that was kind of long-winded, but
Jenna, that ambulance thing is perfect. I will
yeah.
be, because this is a conversation that comes up all the time, and I can't reiterate enough that it's from a place of understanding from me. Like, I know what it feels like. I know what it felt like to think I cannot do this unless I drink. Um, but the biggest thing I've seen that has held back client goals is that factor, and it's a touchy subject with people. And I fancy myself a little bit of like a good conversationalist on that, and it, do you want these goals, health related goals, or do you want to be going out and doing this all the time? And I'll be the harsh one on this. And there were times where the answer to that was blurred for me, and it took time, and it took a lot of rock bottoms and a lot of pretty intense situations I could have avoided, if not. And who knows where I could have gotten at an earlier age without that. But I think maybe because I'm older and out of the scene a little bit now, I have seen there. It's so romanticized, first of all, but it's a little less than it used to be. And whether that's the legalization of other experiences that are happening or more knowledge getting out there, I have seen, and I want to believe this too, that it isn't as predominant. And I think COVID may be responsible for that, where we got inside. Some people, their addictions got really bad, but I got sober right before COVID. I was stuck with those feelings all the time, which kind of relates back to other things we talked about of feeling those feelings. But I can sit here today and tell you, like, I have a social event I have to go do tonight, and that used to be crippling for me if I couldn't go have like even a half bottle of wine or something like that, which like a bottle of wine for me used to be a chiller night, which would put me underground. And now, but I can't tell you, like, I'll be able to go there tonight and I'll be able to connect on every level. I'll be able to wake up tomorrow. And that my true addiction now is how good I feel in the mornings, and where there's nothing I feel like I can't handle. Whereas before, I'd be drinking. I'm sure social and relationships and all that. There's a side to that we could argue back and forth all day long. But every responsibility that I have in my life that is people relying on me and dependent on me, that doesn't happen if I didn't address that situation. I wake up being able to do that and still hit my goals. And if there's anybody listening or struggling with that, I just cannot tell you enough that, like, not alone in that. There are some incredible inspirational stories that people went through. I take a lot from the people that were there before me, and I believe, like, in wisdom and how wisdom is true. There's that you're not the only one going through this, and there are people that have gone through it before, and we all learn a little something from each other. But I think the big takeaway I'd say is no judgment, no shame. But if we're looking at little ways to get around this, maybe we should be looking at what the original root cause of this whole thing is.
100%.
You guys crushed that. Thank you. For those of you that are new to the pod, I have a dog. She's a wonderful dog. She turned 2 yesterday, actually, but she has quite a bark. So thank you
Awesome.
guys for taking over. Yeah, no, that was wonderful. And I think just one thing to add to, and I love all that you guys said there about, like, again, understanding the reasons for you wanting to drink or use substances, right? But I also think it's normal, right? And I think it's good to allow yourself to still partake in these outings, and it's okay to consume the odd beverage if you'd like to. But I think a big thing here that, I think we're all advocates for is balance. And, if you're able to plan your day around it accordingly too, I think it's going to allow you to actually be able to still maybe partake in it and have a drink with someone there that you want to have a drink with. So, if you are planning to go out, plan the rest of your day accordingly. Maybe you have higher protein on earlier in the day. You leave an excess amount of calories for later on in the day too. And, you can still partake sometimes. Just, obviously there's the underlying concern or issue. If it's, a heavy consumption, or if it becomes an outlet where it becomes an unhealthy thing for you. So just some thoughts to consider. But I do think that, again, it's okay to crave those social experiences and those outings sometimes. And I think it's encouraged, if anything.
Yeah. Another
Absolutely.
hack for that as well, sorry, Bryce, was you were talking about like planning your day. You can also plan your week around it. So I think sometimes we are like, oh, calories just reset every day. Actually, if you're like, say you're eating, I don't know, 2,000 calories a day, over the week, that's like 2,000 times 7. Don't ask me to do math, but whatever that is, that's like your weekly calories. You can adjust some of your days. So say you have a friend's birthday on the Friday, and there's going to be more fun, exciting foods there. There will probably be some alcohol involved. You can actually lower your calories throughout the week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, adjust those. So then on Friday, you have more room that day to eat more freely and have a couple drinks with friends. And I think people forget that sometimes. It's like your macro and calorie distributions not just within a day, it's actually within the week as well. So you can make
Yep.
adjustments that way to give yourself more room. Just
Yeah,
planning
no.
ahead, like you said, it's
Yeah.
all about planning and being strategic.
Yeah.
And also, I think too, I've said a lot of harsh things about it, and I think this would have been helpful for me back then too. But let's say you're on a great training program and it's your friend's 21st birthday, and you want to celebrate with them. That's okay. And if you get banged up and you're like having a rough one the next morning and you miss a training session, back at it. No shame at all. No judgment. Take a couple days off. Back at it. Don't let it throw you off course. And that's going to be all up to your goal setting, your long term goal versus your short term goals and everything. And just don't let it throw you off. Because I know for me, when I started to really want to get over this and wanted to see exactly how high performance I could get to, I'd go, 20 days feeling good. Then I'd have a party night, and then I would just feel the weight of the world on me the next day. And it was really hard to get started again. And I felt like I kept throwing myself farther and farther back. When the reality is, like, it can be as extreme as recovery or relapse as a part of recovery, or as just get back at it, back on the program. You just learned a lot about yourself that night. You probably had a great time. Maybe there's some great memories and it was completely harmless. And I could argue that too. And that's totally okay, but just no shame with it. The shame is the worst part of the whole thing. It's like, oh, I was so focused. And I hear this a lot with clients. Like, I was so focused, but I had this night and now I just feel like I've lost everything. And that's just
Yeah.
not true. That's intrusive thoughts. That's storytelling in your brain. I understand. I've been there. I will be there again. But take a second, reconfigure, realign, right back at the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you, guys. I think that's a great place to wrap it up. I don't think there's any other questions, but this has been wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Crushed it.
Thank you, Jenna. If people don't follow you on socials, where can they do so?
Instagram, baby.
There we go.
Fitty fit. Also, actually, subtle plug to myself. I'm starting a YouTube channel. My first video is going up Monday.
So
Come
subscribe.
see me.
What's your channel?
I don't even know how it works, to be completely honest. I still need to figure it out.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll put the channel in the comments and stuff, and we'll put it in the summary. Okay.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress, but Monday it's launched. It's happening. So, can't wait to share that part of my life and experience and education with everyone that listens.
Awesome. This has been a pleasure as usual. Thank you guys so much for your time.
Thank you.
See you guys.